Economic Development Council. So we are very, very fortunate to have Ian in our presence and on our team, and he will add a lot over the next 6 years to the Board of Pharmacy as well as our profession as we continue to move forward. And with that, Tim, if I can get you to take roll call.
Thank you, Madam President. And Ian's proudest accomplishment is he has a new 6-week-old son. So if y'all see him holding his eyelids open, maybe he got a good night's sleep last night, but he hasn't been doing much of that. So roll call, President Julie Spear.
Here.
Vice President Lori Hinkey.
Here.
Treasurer Rick Fernandez.
Here.
Donnie Lewis.
Here.
Jenny Downing-Yoakum.
Here.
Daniel Guerrero. Bradley Miller.
Here.
Donna Montemuor.
Here.
Ian Shaw.
Here.
Suzette Tiorina.
Here.
And Rick Tisch.
Here.
Madam President, we have 10 out of 11 here.
All right, thank you. So members, you were all sent the minutes for review, both of our training session that was held on November the 1st, as well as our last meeting, which was November the 2nd. I'd like to see if we can have a motion to accept if there are no changes to be made.
I'd move to approve the minutes as presented.
All right, so Lori has made the motion and Donnie has accepted. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. With that, we're going to continue with the agenda as we've been doing during the pandemic. And so we're going to start with our public comments. We've invited individuals or had individuals say that they would like to speak. And we're going to allow that to occur. We're going to try to really want to keep everybody to 3 minutes worth of comments. So I believe, Mr. Phillip, if you are prepared. And then you'll need to turn your microphone on as well.
I don't. There it is. I got a message from a coworker indicating that the live stream wasn't up, so I don't.
Verify. Are we good?
You're good? Okay, good. Good morning. My name is Janu Phillip, Director of Pharmacy Affairs for Walgreens. I speak this morning on behalf of Walgreens as well as Texas Federation of Drugstores. My comments today are aimed at the proposed changes to Regulation 291.125, Centralized Prescription Dispensing, otherwise known as Central Fill. So based on my understanding of what transpired in December, a non-resident or Class E pharmacy was identified participating in Central Fill operations, and the board inspector indicated that Class E licenses were not identified within the Central Fill rules as outsourcing pharmacies. And in order for the Class E pharmacy to continue to be serviced from the Texas Central Fill pharmacy, those prescriptions would need to be transferred. Now, since the board has not addressed any safety concerns, it appears that the board is attempting to fill the gap and amend the language to include Class E non-resident pharmacies within the definition of outsourcing pharmacy. Now, this would allow the Class E pharmacies to continue its process of participating in Central Fill operations. While that intent is admirable, the concern here is that the board has not addressed other out-of-state pharmacies within the rule. So by calling out Class A, Class C, and Class E pharmacies as the only pharmacies that can be considered outsourcing, it now makes it appear, at least on the surface, that all other out-of-state pharmacies must obtain a Class E pharmacy license in order to participate. Now, I provided justification within my letter why requiring a Class E license for pharmacies not providing services or prescriptions to patients in Texas was both unnecessary and onerous. This includes the very important fact that obtaining a Class E license, these pharmacies would also be required to have a Texas license PIC, which is obviously an enormous administrative burden. The longstanding interpretation of this board was that pharmacies located out of state can participate in Central Fill, whether they had a Class E license or as long as they were duly licensed in the state they were located. I'm hoping that the board is not taking a new position that out-of-state pharmacies can no longer participate in central fill. Now, assuming that's true, I believe the board has many options to choose to fix the rule to make it clear that out-of-state pharmacies may continue to participate in central fill without the need to acquire a Class C license. So here are three. The board can strike all the license categories from the definition of outsourcing pharmacies and just indicate pharmacies. Another one, the board can include out-of-state pharmacies with or without a Class C license in the definition of outsourcing pharmacies. And alternatively, the board can provide exclusion language, such as what I provided in my letter. Now, I'm hoping that this board is not intending to require license of these out-of-state pharmacies in order to participate in central fill. This would obviously create significant burdens and concerns, and I'd ask the board to consider unintended consequences of this rule as it's proposed and future interpretations that we may be not considering right now. I'm requesting that the licensure of out-of-state pharmacies be considered unnecessary in order to participate in centralized prescription dispensing. Thank you for your time, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Any questions at this time? All right. Thank you, Philip.
Thank you.
All right, and I believe that Mark Sullivan.
Good morning. Mr. Director, Madam President, and distinguished members of the Board of Pharmacy, I appreciate the time this morning to be able to speak with you regarding the same amendment to Rule 291.125 concerning centralized dispensing. Again, we've gotten information from you recently that is not the way the board is intending the rule, maybe the way we've interpreted it. But I would like to explain our position this morning for everyone so that we can be heard on the record. My name is Mark Sullivan. I am a Texas licensed pharmacist, and I'm here today speaking on behalf of the Texas Federation of Drug Stores, as well as for Brookshire's Grocery Company, where I serve as Pharmacy Operations Manager. Regarding the proposal, our understanding is that this new amendment would require an out-of-state outsourcing pharmacy to obtain a Class C permit to now participate in central fill. Our interpretation of the existing rule is that out-of-state outsourcing pharmacies now can participate without this permit and rather just be licensed in good standing with their home state board of pharmacy. The position of the Federation and of Brookshire's Grocery Company is that this additional requirement of a Class C permit for an out-of-state pharmacy would be overly burdensome and unnecessary at this point. Brookshire's Grocery Company has been operating a central fill facility in Tyler, Texas for nearly 5 years now. We currently service all Brookshire's own pharmacies in Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, and soon Oklahoma. Currently, 67 of our 138 pharmacies are located outside the state of Texas. We've had 3 board inspections since the opening of our central fill facility with no failures or demerits noted. And likewise, we've had all of our out-of-state outsourcing pharmacies inspected by their home state boards of pharmacy on several occasions without incident. Furthermore, we're not aware of any instances currently of patient harm or inappropriate practices that would lead to the need for this type of rule change. We believe that this rule will significantly impact the ability of our pharmacies to service patients outside the state of Texas when we've been doing so safely for nearly 5 years now. This change would add a great financial as well as administrative burden to our company that is currently thousands of patients. If this change were to go into effect as written, the prescriptions currently outsourced from outside of Texas to our central fill facility would be forced back to the individual out-of-state pharmacies. It would create an enormous burden on those out-of-state pharmacies since our business model has been built around sending these prescriptions to our central fill facility for several years. It would lead to a severe disruption in service and ultimately a negative impact to patient care. In addition, we believe that this rule is somewhat out of scope for a Class C pharmacy permit since by definition in 22-291.101, out-of-state pharmacies are not dispensing, nor are they providing pharmaceutical services to a patient in the state of Texas, but rather to patients in their home states. Out-of-state pharmacies are already governed by the laws and rules of their home state, and the additional licensure requirement would not be necessary in this instance, in our opinion. In summary, we believe that the board should consider one of the following 3 options when drafting a proposal for this amendment. Number 1, to identify in the proposed amendment that out-of-state outsourcing pharmacies are not required to obtain a Class C permit. Or number 2, amend the rule for clarity only and amend to continue to allow out-of-state outsourcing pharmacies to function as they have been for many years. Number 3 is add additional language in the proposed amendment in each area where Class E has been added to include such language as Class E or an out-of-state pharmacy duly licensed in the state in which they're located. The Federation, as well as Brookshire's Grocery Company, would be aligned with the board if any of the 3 above options were considered or amended in such a way to continue to allow the practice of central fill as it exists today. Again, I appreciate your time, and I hope the board will strongly reconsider the proposed language as it's been proposed. Thank you very much. Any questions? Thank you.
All right. We had a third speaker, but we have word that they were not going to attend. So with that, John, I believe I will turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Madam President. Board members, in the rule PDFs that you've been provided, there are bookmarks with links to the lines with edits. Also, for the rules for adoption, you will have received copies of the orders and the preambles in the OneDrive link that was sent to you, and you also should have them on the computers in front of you. We're going to start with the rules that are up for adoption. I'll tell you that all of the rules up for adoption were proposed at the November 2nd, 2021 board meeting, and they were published in the December 24th, 2021 issue of the Texas Register. On your agenda, item D1.1 are amendments to 283.4 regarding the extended internship requirements. And what this does essentially is requires that a resident in a residency program applying for an extended internship must not have previously failed the NAPLEX or Texas Pharmacy Jurisprudence examination. This change is being sought to close a loophole that was not originally foreseen. And you'll see it on line 194, because to be designated an extended intern under that program, one of the requirements is that one can be a resident in a residency program accredited by the American Society of Health System Pharmacists in the state of Texas. And the amendment adds that one must also not have previously failed the NAPLEX or Texas Pharmacy Jurisprudence examination. You will also see some grammatical corrections throughout the rule.
All right. Can I get a motion for approval? Donnie has made a motion. Rick Tisch has made the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. John?
Next, board members, you'll see D1.2. These are amendments relating to Rule 291.29 concerning the professional responsibility of a pharmacist. These amendments were proposed in part due to the requirement of House Bill 2056 that required rules to be adopted regarding prescriptions issued as a result of teledentistry. Logically, though, it follows that prescriptions issued as a result of telemedicine medical services also be subject to the same standard. We'll look at line 168, and there you'll see the validity of a prescription issued as a result of telemedicine medical services or teledentistry is determined by the same standards that would apply to a prescription issued in an in-person setting. So nothing's changed. Lines 171 through 176 set the requirements for a valid prescription as a result of telemedicine or teledentistry. First, that it must be issued for a legitimate medical purpose by a practitioner as part of a practitioner-patient relationship, and that's set out and is defined. And secondly, the prescription must meet all other applicable laws before prescribing, dispensing, delivering, or administering a dangerous drug or controlled substance.
All right. Any questions or discussion? And if not, can I get a motion to approve?
John, how is this interfaced with out-of-state doctors when they call in prescriptions or they're a patient? when they have patients here?
I'll ask Ms. Megan to speak.
Okay.
Miss Megan.
Yes,
It's the same. It's just the validity of a prescription. So it's the same thing you have now. The legislature asked us to work with the dental board to put this in here. So it's coming out of statute, but nothing has really changed.
Okay.
It's just the same way we handle valid prescriptions under telemedicine.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve?
So. Second.
I've got Rick he's made the motion to approve, and Bradley has seconded. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. All right, John?
Next, board members, you'll see D 1.3. These are amendments relating to 291.34 concerning Schedule 2 controlled substance prescriptions. And on line 128, you'll see that it amends the deadline to the 30th day for dispensing a prescription drug order for a Schedule 2 controlled substance. And this is to be consistent throughout our rules and with federal law, as the rule had previously been 21 days. And on line 292, you'll see an update reference to the Texas Administrative Code regarding how prescription drug orders may be utilized. And this references a Health and Human Services rule regarding nursing facility requirements for licensure and Medicaid certifications.
All right. Any questions or comments? I can have a motion to approve. Lori has made the motion.
Second.
Donnie has made the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. John, if you want to take us through the proposed rules.
Yes, Madam President. Board members, on D 2.1, you'll see pharmacist reinstatement requirements. And I will tell you, this suggestion comes from staff. Currently, the standard for a reinstatement is 45 hours of continuing education and a 1,500-hour internship. Staff feels that the proposed amendments are more equitable. These numbers more closely follow the numbers for an expired license under Rule 283.10. And on lines 51 through 84, you see it outlines the reinstatement requirements for continuing education and are a board-approved internship requirement based on a schedule. So if an applicant for reinstatement of a license to practice pharmacy is granted by the board, the applicant, in addition to any sanctions or other requirements, and it's based on this schedule, if you look at it, you'll see it's based on the amount of time that the license has been revoked or canceled, and it starts at 1 year, and it goes up to over 10 years, and it imposes a number of continuing education hours that are required, and if necessary, an approved internship and the number of hours required there.
All right. First of all, I want to thank the staff for bringing this forward and all the work done on it. I think this is a very well thought out plan, and it really, I think, is better for the pharmacist. Comments, questions? Can we have a motion to propose? Rick has made the motion to propose. Did I see a hand over here? Donnie has second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that will move forward then.
Two. First one, regarding 291-104, these are amendments concerning centralized prescription dispensing. And on line 64, you'll see it adds clarification that a Class E pharmacy that's also engaged in outsourcing a prescription drug order dispensing to a central fill pharmacy shall comply with 291-125 regarding centralized prescription dispensing, which takes us to the proposed amendments to 291-125 concerning centralized prescription dispensing. This came to staff's attention because of a compliance with the board issued a warning notice to a pharmacy that was acting as a central fill pharmacy for a Class E that was outsourcing. And let me clarify, the purpose here is to clarify that Class E's are not prohibited from outsourcing centralized prescription dispensing. You'll see in the proposed language on line 17, it adds that a Class E pharmacy to the definition of centralized prescription dispensing as a requesting pharmacy. On line 20, it adds Class E to the definition of an outsourcing pharmacy. And on line 34, it clarifies that a Class E pharmacy is one that may outsource prescription drug order dispensing to a central fill pharmacy under the rule, and importantly, if allowed by their state's law. Now, we did receive some comments on this agenda item. We received a comment from Biologics by McKesson in support of the suggested amendments to the rule, and you can read his reasoning as part of his attached comment. We also received a comment from Exact Care Pharmacy, which supports the suggested amendments to the rule. And counselors from Quarles and Brady LLP suggested the amendments may not be necessary, and you should have all of those comments provided in front of you.
So we've got the comments. This is where our public comments came in. Rick?
My question, I guess, in reviewing, does this require an out-of-state pharmacist to get a license? Is that specified anywhere here? Or I think that's where the concern is there's a thought that the pharmacies that are in other states would have to obtain a license and have a PIC and all that. So is that specified anywhere, or how we determine that?
No, it's not.
Rick, so the way this is set up, compliance did a strict reading of this, and it listed 2 classes of pharmacy that we license and said that they could do it, and didn't list a class of pharmacy. And so they read that to say only Class A and Class C can. So we added Class E in here, not to change the way things are currently done, just so that it's very clear that just because a non-resident holds a Class E doesn't mean that they're prohibited from, they're not licensed with us and we don't regulate them. But it's not, none of this is intended to make anyone get a Class E license or any sort of extra licensure. It's just to clarify that if they happen to hold that Class E, we're not prohibiting them. It's entirely about what's, allowed in their state, as it would be for any other non-resident pharmacy.
If I could follow up, I think the public comments state that they would feel more comfortable if something was put in there stating that. I know the interpretation, I totally understand where you're getting, but I think there is a feeling that there would be something we could add stating, further emphasizing that point. So what are your thoughts on that if we did do something like that?
We could take this back and work on some language that might, list that in there if that's what we interpret them. So we can also go on record saying that the intention is not to license, or to require the Class E license of a non-resident pharmacy. It's, up to the board how you'd like us to proceed. We're just trying to provide clarity.
No, I think that's what you were trying to do, is provide the clarity. And it does, I guess it's been interpreted differently, so I guess anything we can do to make it a little clearer. I just don't know how that language would read. Because I didn't read anywhere in here that said they needed to get licensed.
Correct.
And so I was a little confused when I saw the comments about having to get licensed, and I'm like, okay, I think I missed something.
Correct.
Okay.
There's nothing in here that would require them to get the Class E license.
So we have several choices. We can have a motion to propose, which takes it forward. If the board's pleasure is to send it back to staff, we can send it back to staff as well.
But you just went on record saying
That's not the interpretation, that's not the intent.
So why would we take it back to staff? It's on the record.
I totally agree with what you're saying. That's not the intent. I think with the public comments that we have, they kind of want more. That's all I'm thinking about. And since we're not really there's no action or anything that really is important, would it really be wrong just to have that added in? just, there's not anything urgent to have it done today, but, I don't know if anybody I could make a proposal to take it back to just add some language re-emphasizing that, or I don't know how the rest of the board feels, or any other comments from anybody?
Somebody mentioned like adding something about, Class E or out-of-state pharmacies, something like that. I thought there was some comment to that. I just don't know if that's too vague.
We might want to wordsmith how we would do
Yeah.
that, because we don't want to appear as if we're attempting to regulate a pharmacy that we don't license.
Gotcha. Okay.
Do we have to specify Class A, Class C, or can we just make a general statement?
Well, there are classes of pharmacy that we don't allow
Okay.
to participate in this, which is why we specify now those 3 classes.
Is there a third option that the board could direct staff to evaluate and clarify and make it clearer and bring you back proposed language? Because I hear you say not propose or propose, but to me.
No. I said not propose or take it back, which means that we would not.
Right, but is there not a third option that you could say move it forward, that we understand what you're trying to do, but clarify some of these concerns in the language so that we could bring you proposed rules in? I'm asking.
Yeah, I think that's a question for Megan, because if we tweak it too far, then it has to go back to public.
Through the public comment
Yeah.
period. And since we would be, coming up with some language that seems to be
Yeah.
touchy for some people, I would want the board to vote on it before we try to do that just on our own, since it's not clear how it would be worded. You're correct, sometimes we can do that.
Yeah, if it's a
In that
minor.
case, I'll make a motion to approve this. See how it goes.
Rick, are you making the motion to
making a
propose?
Yeah.
Okay.
Accept the changes.
All right, so we have a motion to propose as is. Do we have a second? So Ian has seconded.
Just as a reminder, board members, if you make motions, they can't hear. If you'll turn your microphones on, that would be great. Thank you.
I thought it was loud, sorry.
Okay, so just to clarify, so Rick has made a proposal, a motion to propose, and Ian has made a second. All those in favor of this motion to propose? Say aye, or let's do a raise of hands. All those opposed? All right, so it does not pass as that. Do we have another motion? Or we can?
I move that we send it back to staff for,
Yeah.
sorry, I move that we send it back to staff for more clarified language to make it more clear for the public.
Okay, so we have a second motion from Donna,
Second.
and we've got 2 seconds here, but we'll go with Rick Fernandez has made the second. All those in favor of this just going back to the staff? Say aye.
There's no good choice.
The other choice is to do nothing,
Yeah, we
Rick,
can do
so-
nothing, we just let it die.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, there is a third, and I should have,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Makes sense.
All right. And then, John, if you want to take us through our rule reviews?
Yes, Madam President. Board members, behind D3 is our rule review plan for fiscal year 2022 through 2025. State law requires that you review these rules on a 4-year cycle. And what you're looking for here is to see if you still need these rules. It's not about the content of them. And so we're going to take 2 of these at the same time here. D 3.1.1 concerning Chapter 291 concerning pharmacies, nuclear pharmacies, Class Bs, and D 3.1.3 concerning Chapter 309 concerning generic substitution. And these are both up for adoption to retain these rules.
All right. Before I ask for a motion, or if there are any questions, I wanted to remind everybody, we do have people in the overflow in 102, so if you're going to speak, make sure you turn your mic on, because the comment came through that not everything's coming through on the live feed. So, to reiterate, for adoption, we're looking at the first, D.3.1.1, and then the third, D.3.1.3. Can we have a motion? I have a motion from Suzette and a second from Lori. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. John, you want to continue?
The next one, Madam President, is D 3.1.2, and this is for the adoption of the repeal of Chapter 305 concerning educational requirements. And this would be to find that this rule is no longer necessary.
All right, so the suggestion here is to repeal and remove. Do we have any comments, questions, or a motion?
Motion.
Bradley has made the motion and Donnie has seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, John, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so Tim, you want to give us a report on the Compounding Advisory Group?
Yes, ma'am. The Compounding Advisory Group has not met since our last November board meeting, so that's the quick report.
All right. And, all right, and our next order of business will be the PMP reports.
Good morning, board members. I'm Linda Yazdanchanos. I'm the manager for the prescription monitoring program. And I'm going to share with you information regarding the prescription monitoring program advisory committee, which met on November 17th via Zoom. During that meeting, there was a presentation by Bamboo Health, the vendor for the prescription monitoring program. Bamboo Health staff presented information regarding outcome studies and value metrics, registration and account creation process, statewide gateway project update, service level agreements, including response time procedures and upcoming initiatives. Dr. Tucker provided an update regarding PMP funding for integration and NARCS care. He shared that board staff has researched several alternatives of funding, none of which have yet been successful. Board staff has also been advised that funding may be available in the future from the Opioid Abatement Fund, and we're also encouraged to reach out to DIR regarding qualifying for cybersecurity funds. He indicated that both options were being evaluated. During the meeting, I presented information and also answered questions regarding the wholesale distributors database, the TWID database. I reviewed a comparison of information that's reported to the PMP by pharmacies and information reported to the Texas Wholesale Distributors database by distributors. And also that the two databases are separate systems. And it was explained that the Texas Wholesale Distributors database is not under purview of the PMP Advisory Committee, so any recommendations would need to come from the board. New discussion items for the next meeting include the Texas Pain Society NARCS Care Survey results presentation, a PMP integration and NARCS Care funding update. There was also a request that the pain and medical examiner surveys be resent. A date for the next meeting has not yet been set. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions for Linda? All right. And then you've got the report on the interagency.
Right, yes. The Interagency Prescription Monitoring Program Work Group met on December 16th in person. And during this meeting, Dr. Tucker reviewed a statistical report on the prescription monitoring program activities for the fourth quarter fiscal year 2021. Dr. Tucker also reported that funding for integration and NARCS care was not received during the last legislative session, and TSBP has looked for several alternative sources of funding, and that staff was currently reviewing possible sources of funding. TSBP is also monitoring the PMP data to see how integration affects the numbers, and also information about the recent audit of the prescription monitoring program by the State Auditor's Office. I reviewed recommendations that were made and also discussed some which require cooperation from the other licensing agencies for TSBP to comply. Items affecting their licensees and information about pharmacy compliance with reporting requirements. The group agreed to meet twice annually with a meeting scheduled before the next legislative session, and a date for that meeting has also not been set yet.
All right,
Are there
any
any
questions
questions?
for Linda regarding this report?
Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. All right, we're going to move on to our financial update, and I'll ask Ann to come forward.
Good morning, Madam President. Good morning, members. In F.1.1, first slide, you'll find a summary data of the financial operations of our agency from September 1st, 2021 through November 30th, 2021. We were appropriated $10.1 million by the legislature, and through the end of the quarter, we spent $2.5 million, which represents 24% of our annual budget. Salaries, wages, and other personnel costs make up approximately 60% of our annual budget. On the second slide, you'll see how all the expenses are broken down into the various LBB expense categories. Okay. Before we look at the travel budget for the board members, I'd like to share a new policy that we're implementing in light of the post-payment audit by the Comptroller's Office. We would like all the board members to use the cost comparison between personally owned vehicle versus car rental to determine the most cost-effective means of transportation prior to travel. If it's more cost-effective to rent a vehicle, please get with Lily and she'll reserve the vehicle for you. And it's more cost-effective to rent a vehicle, please note that the agency will only reimburse you up to the amount of the cost to rent a vehicle plus the gasoline reimbursement. Lastly, please keep and submit all copies of receipts in which you like to seek reimbursement. They include meal and hotel receipts and any other incidental expenses you may have incurred during state business travel. Okay. Any questions regarding the new policy?
A quick question, just on the other operating expense, just because I don't know what it is. What is HPC Shared Regulatory Database?
Right. So the HPC, that's VRSA. They're the one who manages the VRSA, our licensing database system. And for AY 2022, we had to transfer $500,000 to support the operating expense. That's how HPC gets funded, through the transfers from all the regulatory agencies.
But it's normal to have this happen?
Right. It's 500. It went up from last year, but that is a transfer we do on an annual basis.
Thank you.
I don't think you said this, but I want you to. Why are we doing the personal vehicle versus rental vehicle, and why are we doing the receipts?
It's in light of a post-payment audit by the Comptroller's Office.
So this was not an agency decision. I want all of you to know that. We're doing this because we're required to do that. So you're welcome to drive your own vehicle. You're welcome to do those things, but we can only reimburse you so much. So I don't want you to leave and go, I wonder what we're doing that for.
And I do have a question concerning the car rental versus driving
Yes.
your personal vehicle. So we would have to add in an Uber ride to the rental place as well to do the math, correct? To justify it?
The cost comparison is only between the car rental versus the POV.
But how do you get to the car rental
For-
place?
Yeah, for the Uber, we would reimburse you.
Okay,
Yeah, you will get reimbursed 100% for your Uber expense.
Just to make sure I understand, so previously the meals were covered via a stipend, so that, but now it's individual receipts versus the stipend, is that correct?
You're eligible to get reimbursed up to $36
of the
for
stipend.
meal reimbursement. And also, please submit all your meal receipts as well.
Okay, thank you.
We have not been very anal on the receipts before.
So, okay, on that, so you would submit whatever the receipt is, but it's capped at $36?
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
It's the same rules, no alcohol, no taxes and tips.
Sure.
Up to the 36.
Okay.
So the rule hasn't changed, it's just make sure you're, and I guess it's twofold. Make sure you're keeping your receipts and turning
Right.
them in, and make sure you're doing it timely. Because we want to make sure that, everything's hitting at the right time of the year and all of that.
Right, correct. Thank you.
And if we go back to that slide too, the professional fees and services, it says educational, or the fees, 100 and some thousand, and then the other one is 248,000, and it says other professional fees. What are those other fees or professional fees?
I'll be 2009. The other professional fees that we would pay would be for the peer assistance program. That's included. The peer assistance contract that we have with TPA.
How much is that contract?
That is, if I remember correctly, that's about $20,000 a month.
Of pharmacists and student pharmacists participating with the peer assistance program. The top of the chart reflects the overall number of individuals participating with PRN during the last 3 fiscal years. And the bottom chart reflects the number of individuals counted as on a quarterly basis for the current fiscal year. And so you're looking at numbers through the end of November of 2021.
Any questions for Caroline on this report?
All right, well, with that, I'll turn it over to Raquel Leal with PRN to give you the PRN update.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, members of the board and staff. My name is Raquel Leal, and I am the director for Professional Recovery Network. And I am here this morning to give the report for our second quarter of this fiscal year. PRN continues to receive a steady number of referrals regarding potentially impaired pharmacists and pharmacy students, and compliance by current participants is acceptable, and all concerns regarding public safety have been reported to the Texas State Board of Pharmacy. PRN continues to offer an individualized approach to the supports and accommodations offered to our participants throughout the pandemic. This includes continuing to provide participants with the option to complete their evaluations and recovery-related meetings through online platforms. If preferred, PRN regional coordinators will continue to provide monthly regional meetings to our participants via online platforms or teleconferences to ensure ongoing peer supports are being offered. PRN is excited to announce that we will be presenting at the University of Texas at Austin College of Pharmacy to P1s, P2s, and P3 students throughout February on the topic of problematic professional substance use, as well as to talk about PRN and the services that we provide. The dates for these scheduled presentations have not yet been finalized, and PRN is waiting to hear back from the faculty and staff at UT Austin. PRN continues to explore opportunities to increase program visibility, to create awareness of the PRN program, and we will be outreaching to other pharmacy schools in the state of Texas. Seminars. PRN Spring Seminar is tentatively scheduled for Saturday, May 14th, 2022 at Norris Conference Centers in Austin, Texas, and finalized details will be made available at the next board meeting. The next section talks about LBB numbers, and LBB numbers for September 1st, 2021 through November 30th, 2021 were submitted to TSBP on December 8th, 2021. LBB numbers include all licensed pharmacists and pharmacy students enrolled in PRN, and this shows as 6 volunteer pharmacy students, 3 board-ordered pharmacy students, 30 volunteer pharmacists, and 40 board-ordered pharmacists. And on the last page of the report, you'll be able to find financials showing PRN's expenditure report for September 1st, 2021 to November 30th, 2021. And after the expense report, that concludes my report.
All right, are there any questions for Raquel? All right, well, Raquel, thank you so much, and you're doing a great job. We appreciate everything you're doing there.
Thank you.
It's very evident when we have informal conferences that you care deeply, and you really seem to have done a lot of work with the staff, and we really appreciate everything that you're doing.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, board members. Next on our agenda is a discussion of the strategic plan. You can see first the calendar as far as September 2021 questionnaires went out to interested parties. I want to thank everyone that participated in those questionnaires and getting us back information. You know, that's a big part of the process, and it really is very helpful that that you participate and help us with that. The external internal assessment, there were 3 things that one of the things was minimizing unnecessary rules to allow greater flexibility in pharmacy practice. We want to make sure that we're not bright lining, which you remember from our training last time. We talked a little bit about how rules can be bright lined or they can be scope of practice. To evaluate advances in technology in the practice of pharmacy, and then to develop and expand relationships with other health professional agencies to promote collaboration. Tim, if you can.
Thank you, Julie. We're very excited about these 3 topics. To me, they're very broad and lots of opportunity for us to dream and for us to think about where we can go as a profession in the state of Texas. These are the bones, and we hope to put meat on the bones in the next 3 months and bring you back some bullet points under each one of these of how we hope to accomplish some of these things. I welcome your feedback. If you think we've missed the point, we would welcome you to say, what about this, Tim, or have you thought about this? Staff is excited about the opportunity to evaluate kind of where we're headed and maybe some new directions and some new opportunities.
Questions, comments from the board, thoughts? All right. We'll see what the staff comes up with, but I think that, as I said, with the feedback that we got from the questionnaires, I think this lines up well. And it will, as Tim said, allow us to look forward in what we can do. And with that, if we can have, I think Ann's in the other room. Here she is. Ann is going to give us a report on the new building.
No,
Or, I'm sorry, the annual report.
Thank you. If you look at attachment on F.4, you'll see our draft of our fiscal year 2021 annual report that was submitted to y'all for review. We are looking for a motion to approve.
All right. I know y'all all looked through this. Do we have a motion to approve the annual report? Rick has made a motion. Donnie has made a second. All in favor of approving? Aye. Any opposed? All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ann. And with that, we will bring Linda back to report on the prescription monitoring program.
You've been provided the last quarter PMP stat sheet, and that's for fiscal year 2022, quarter 1. And those are the stats that I'm going to review with you this morning. So there were 3.38 million controlled substances reported to the PMP, and the top 5 are listed there for you. For registered users, we added an additional 3,404 new registrations. There were 65.289 million searches through integration, and then through aware searches, there were 11.29 million. And this quarter, we remained at 36 states and entities that we share data with through the PMP Interconnect. Are there any questions on that?
Any questions for Linda?
That's a good question.
Sure.
I mean, it's good to see, obviously, we have our bordering states with a partner. The other states that are not on, any progress in getting those added, or it's not a priority? Do you know?
Well, I mean, we do, you're right, we do have all of the bordering states, and it just depends on the state, because every state has different laws regarding information that they can share. Some states we may not be able to connect with, but as, you know, that availability becomes an option, we review that.
Any other questions? Thank you, Linda. All right, Megan, you want to run us through our reports on appeal?
Garrett appeal, and you've heard about this one for the past couple of years. This is the case where the two physicians sued the Texas State Board of Pharmacy and the Texas Medical Board regarding the prohibition from physicians dispensing from office practices. There was a favorable ruling from a district court that dismissed the case, but the plaintiffs appealed to the Third Court of Appeals in Austin. Attorneys from the Office of the Attorney General's Solicitor General's office have been appointed to handle this case for the board. The briefs were filed in July and August, and the court decided not to conduct oral arguments, so the appeal will be decided on the briefs, and there have been no updates since that from the last meeting. Next, we have CVS Pharmacy number 7816, and this is also one that you've heard about at the last few meetings. They appealed the board order that was entered as a result of the hearing that was held at SOA, and then your adoption of a proposed order at the last February board meeting. The case has been assigned to the 53rd District Court in Travis County. An attorney from the Attorney General's office was appointed to handle the case for the board, and this one has been decided. In December, the court affirmed the board order in all respects, and CVS did not appeal this decision, so it's final. Next, we have Whole Women's Health, and you've also heard about this one. It is regarding Senate Bill 8, which is sometimes referred to as the fetal heartbeat bill. The plaintiffs are Texas abortion providers and individuals and organizations who help patients obtain abortions. And they are suing the executive directors of the Texas Medical Board, the Texas Board of Nursing, the Texas Pharmacy Board, along with the executive commissioner of the Texas Health and Human Services Commission. Attorneys from the Attorney General's office and the Office of the Solicitor General have been appointed for representation in this case. And as I reported at the last meeting, the plaintiffs requested emergency relief from the United States Supreme Court. And on October 22nd, the Supreme Court granted certiorari before a judgment was made in district court. On December 10th, the Supreme Court affirmed in part and reversed in part the district court order and remanded the case to the United States Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. Subsequently, the plaintiffs requested the United States Supreme Court to issue a writ of mandamus to direct the Fifth Circuit Court to remand the case to district court. On January 20th, the Supreme Court rejected the provider's request, and then the Fifth Circuit Court sent the case to the Texas Supreme Court to certify the question of whether state officials or agencies can enforce SB 8. An oral argument is set for February 24th in that case. And then we have Light Care RX, LLC, and this is also one you've heard before. This case is in federal district court, and this pharmacy had an informal conference in March regarding an alleged failure to operate. They chose not to enter into the proposed agreed order from the IC, and board staff filed and served notice of hearing at the State Office of Administrative Hearings. The lawsuit alleges that our failure to operate rule is unconstitutional and discriminates against those in heat zone areas. An attorney from the Attorney General's office has been appointed to handle this case. A motion to dismiss was filed on October 26th. In November, the court denied the motion to dismiss and stayed the case pending the administrative law judge's decision in the SOA case. And then lastly, we have CVS Pharmacy number 8336, and they have appealed the board order that was entered as a result of a hearing that was held at SOA, and then your adoption of a proposed order at the May board meeting. The case is in the 455th District Court. An attorney from the Attorney General's office has been appointed to handle this case, and they are working on a briefing schedule and getting that one set for hearing. Those are all of the cases.
Any questions for Megan? All right. So next on our agenda is Miss Ann, and now she's going to give us the report on the building.
What's that famous line? I'm back. I'm going to take my mask off just so that maybe this projects a little better. In the month of January, staff attended an executive summit with a bunch of other agencies. In regards to the move, we received a very general overview of the move project and where they were. They were very, very strong to stress that they are on time and they are on budget. And so we all said, okay. And we were able to meet with a few project managers to potentially get some questions answered. We also met with TFC in regards to cube layout and cube planning for the new space. A large portion of our staff will be sitting in cubes, and so we've finalized that plan. Additionally, we met with IT, DIR, and TFC in regards to moving all of our IT equipment. It's very detailed. It has to happen before we move staff to try and minimize downtime for the agency services to the public. So we definitely have that strongly in the forefront of our brain. There may be some temporary downtime, but we're trying our best to make that as minimal as possible. With all of those three things done, they have told us that we will be receiving our actual move date sometime in the next month. As soon as we have that, we'll let you know when we're actually moving. But we have asked for September, just because there's a lot of things, including people graduating in August, that we would really like to not disrupt if at all possible. We are looking at alternate meeting sites for November and February. Again, we would like to minimize board business, disruption to board business as much as possible. We know you count on the first Tuesday of the months in August and November. The problem is that while they've told us that they do have a meeting room that will hold about 100 people in our new space, they do not have the sign-up system ready yet. So you have all of the agencies in the building waiting for the sign-up system to happen so that they can sign up for the one room that we have in that building. So we have TDLR has graciously granted us access to a meeting room for them. We have tentatively set that up so that we at least know we have a home that we could meet at. If the building meeting room is available, we will absolutely jump on that. But on a path that y'all are used to. As soon as we get the meeting date, we'll let you know. We do have an address. It's 1801 Congress. And we will be working on changing the multitude of forms over the next 6 months where that address is located, and it is a lot. So our staff have a lot in front of us. Did y'all have any questions about the move?
I guess one question / maybe comment. So I think about individual licensees and the potential that we may have like a real short window that we're down. I think that we need to, as soon as we have that kind of pinpointed, start letting people know use with that window. I think the more transparent we can be to let people know that, and then employers, if we can make sure we're letting our employees know if your birthday's during this month or your license expires during this month, make sure you're aware of this.
We've definitely discussed putting a flag up on the website as early as possible with that information. We're also trying to move that downtime as much as possible to late night, overnight, to try and impact as few people also. But we will definitely implement social media too. And maybe do some return blasts once a month, just a reminder. It's a good idea.
Ann and her team are doing a fantastic job. Just for board information, we're hoping to move IT late on a Wednesday afternoon, and if everything goes right, be back up before bedtime on Wednesday night, and then on Thursday let them have the day to kind of work out the kinks, and then we will have a moving party for any of you that are in the area that would like to wear your blue jeans and roll up your sleeves and come help on a Friday and a Saturday, and then we'll let Monday. So we're going to do minimal downtime. We've really gotten lots of good information in the last 30 days. We've been real frustrated before the last 30 days, but we've had lots of communication, lots of correspondence. Our address will be Suite 13.100, because we'll have the whole 13th floor of the new building at 1801 Congress. It's going to be very exciting, and it's going to be great to get there. We'll all be glad to get there and get settled. If you have any questions about the move, we don't want you to think we're keeping you in the dark. We've been in the dark, and we've kind of told you as we've known information, but Ann's doing a fantastic job of managing that process, and we have developed a team, a group from each team that's going to be helpers in this, that's going to help Ann with the process. But it's going to be a lot of fun, and we're ready to leave Hobby and get to Congress, and that's going to happen sooner than we think, even though it's been forever to take place. It's now reality. But if you have questions, please reach out to us. We want to answer those questions, but it is an exciting time.
Think of that weekend as team building.
Do you think there'll be any impact to like newly licensed graduates around that time, getting themselves, it's around that general time where a lot of them do?
We are hoping not at all, and that's why we had the option of moving in August, and we were really concerned about that exact issue. So that's why we requested our first two preferences are in September, the second weekend in September and third weekend in September, because we think if it's middle of the month, it won't have near as much of an impact as if it's at the end of a month. And that's also trying to get off of the Labor Day weekend. But staff is committed to make this happen whenever, and we have been promised, hopefully the first 2 weeks in February, to have that date. And as soon as we have it, Julie's going to buy pizza or something better, and we're all going to have a party that weekend. So y'all stay tuned for more information.
And we also have, thanks to the pandemic, we have more remote capabilities for staff, so we definitely plan to implement those as much as possible to limit that impact as well.
Thank you.
And I think Donnie was going to ask Ann earlier about financially everything. We're in good shape as far as the cost of the move. I know that.
My question was really, we're getting new things. We're really not moving a lot of things from here other than the filings and all of that. Is that right?
We are moving almost everything. The thing that TFC is paying for is the cubicles.
Okay.
We don't have to pay for that. They are providing those for us. They're doing the setup. So we are kind of operating on their plan and what they're providing, which looks like nice size cubes. But we are moving a lot of furniture because we do not have there are other agencies that did receive funds. We are not one of them. So we've been scavenging offices to kind of tag furniture that we're going to move, and then we surplus whatever we don't take with us.
It's a little frustrating when I'm on meetings with other executive directors and they've ordered their $150,000 worth of new furniture for their offices. But we got between $3,000 and $4,000 for the move, and I was concerned about that until I found out that TFC is going to move us, because I was wondering if everybody in the room was going to have to come help us that weekend if we were going to have to move for $4,000. But TFC is paying for the move, but most of our stuff's going.
Please just, pop me an email and I'll be glad to answer them. I anticipate a lot of movement on planning over the next 30 to 45 days.
Like you need a GoFundMe page for furniture.
Could you scavenge the other furniture from those other agencies?
I have actually been directed to do that by TFC because there are so many agencies in this building who are getting brand new furniture. As they move, I was advised by TFC to kind of build up a relationship with their move coordinators to go walk their offices and see if they have something better than us. So we will definitely take whatever we can get that's nice quality, not falling down.
Sure.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you, ma'am. All right, next on the agenda, if you'll look, board, at tab 4.8, I think you'll be pretty excited at this new document. This kind of came out of a recommendation during an informal conference as to should we develop some frequently asked questions. And so the staff took that recommendation and really put together a great document. And this is for new pharmacy owners to help them navigate the process, what their responsibilities are, managing officers. I mean, it's really gonna, I think, help them understand what they need to do and hopefully keep less pharmacies from coming before us that never opened up or, you know, aren't operating for various reasons. So I commend the staff on this. I think it's a great document, and I think it will help a lot of people. And I love the fact that, you know, it was an idea that came out of informal conference. So big congrats to the staff on that.
Yeah. I want to specifically thank Dr. Cindy Hill. Cindy is an in-house pharmacist that has a new title that I don't remember what it is right this minute. He got a new position, new title in December, and Cindy was given this opportunity, and she was so excited and she ran with it. It's point and click, so if you'll click the item, it takes you right to the answers. She was very disappointed because it's not perfect. So if you see an issue that you want changed or added to it or corrected, please drop me a note, drop Megan a note, drop Cindy a note. She's thrilled to do it, and thank you for those of you that said, why don't we do this?
Mm-hmm.
It frustrates me on ICs when they say, I didn't know that. I've never heard of that. We can't make them read this document, but we're going to at least provide it to them every time that they ask for an application for a new pharmacy.
All right.
Julie, the only thing I would suggest is we put like a verse of edits and changes, but
Yeah,
other than that, it looks great to me.
That is a good idea. So, all right. Any other suggestions, comments on the document? All right. How about if it's 10:12? I'm sorry, my clock is wrong on my computer. I have 10:15. If we take a 15-minute break and return at 10:30. we did know that, ooh, it's kind of maybe a little bit out. We did notice that y'all were in the back having a little bit of difficulty hearing. Yeah. It's kind of reverberating.
If you can make sure your volume is off on your computers, that will help.
Mine is off. We're all off down here. Technology is great. Okay, so let's try this now. Can I get a thumbs up from the audience? Better? Can y'all hear? Okay. So we did realize that while the live stream audio was crystal clear and perfect, you know, it was very noticeable that at times it did seem like the back of the room could not hear. So during break, which is why we took a little bit longer break, we did get some speakers going so that y'all have the ability to hopefully hear. Do let us know when things like that are going on. We want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to hear, to be able to take notes and participate. So, all right, with that, we will go back into the agenda. We are going to skip F.9. At this time, there's a presentation that is associated with that, so we will move that to a little bit later in the agenda. So if you'll go to F.10, we felt like it would be appropriate at this time to kind of look at the PrEP Act. We asked Megan to give us some advice, breakdown. You know, there's a lot of points of the PrEP Act that obviously we would definitely like to see stay. And so the thought was to kind of have a little bit of a collective education as to what the process would be, what our limitations are, and kind of talk a little bit through that. So Megan, hopefully I set the stage well for you.
But you need to. Okay. Thanks, Shada. Okay, I think we're good now. Okay. So you should be able to see the chart behind F.10. Hearing an echo, but I think that's okay. I need to give kudos to Ben Santana and Caroline Hotchkiss, who put together this beautiful chart for us. The chart breaks down the license type, what is authorized by the PrEP Act and authorized by the Pharmacy Act and board rules. The no entries indicated in red have statutory barriers that prevent adopting the PrEP Act amendments by rule. These would require statutory changes by the legislature, some of which would be in the Medical Practice Act, not the Pharmacy Act. The entries with a yes in white are currently allowed, at least to an extent, and we did not identify the potential for rule amendments that could expand or clarify it. The entries with a yes in blue are currently allowed to an extent, and there may potentially be rule amendments that could clarify and or expand it. We have not had time to fully dive into what those rule amendments might be. These are just potential areas we could look into and bring back in May if the board directed staff to do so.
Can you do all that again?
Yes, okay. It was very difficult because I could hear myself. Okay, we'll start over. To begin with, we need to give props or kudos to Ben Santana and Caroline Hotchkiss for putting together this beautiful chart for us. The chart breaks down by license type what is authorized by the PrEP Act and authorized by the Texas Pharmacy Act and board rules, PrEP Act amendments by rule. These require statutory changes by the legislature. It's not something that the board can do. And some of those statutory changes would be within the Medical Practice Act, not the Pharmacy Act. The entries with a yes in white are currently allowed to an extent, and we did not identify the potential for rule amendments that could expand or clarify it. The entries with a yes in blue are currently allowed, at least to an extent, and there may potentially be rule amendments that could clarify and or expand these. We have not had time to fully dive into what those rule amendments might look like, or whether or not that's 100% feasible, but they are potential areas that we could look into and bring back to you at a future board meeting if you directed staff to do so.
Thank you, Megan, and obviously thank you to Ben and Caroline. Questions, comments?
I think it's a great job. The education is really good for our pharmacists and our teams. I think we'd have to understand too is that this represents an opportunity for pharmacists to understand what's coming up later on and what the pharmacy operations might look like after the PrEP Act, and take action if they choose to do so, right? Because there's only some areas where we can make change here and a lot we cannot. So it's an opportunity for people to advocate for their positions with the legislature. So I think it's important that we put this together. So thank you for doing that.
Megan, is this available on our website?
It is. It's attached to the board meeting agenda on the website.
Okay.
For this item number.
And is it something that, separate from the board meeting, could be published?
Absolutely.
So people would note, something that would kind of trigger people in that direction. I think that somebody may not look through the board packet for it, but if they saw an icon that sent them to this, I think they might see it as very beneficial.
Yeah, that's a wonderful idea. I think we have a page about the PrEP Act, and so we could add this to that page.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think bringing it forward, I think that's a really good idea, because I think it could be a great tool. Donna, I believe you had a comment.
Yeah, so just to be clear, everything that's in the light blue, those are things that we could affect. And what you would be looking for at some point is for us to direct the staff to go back and look at those. Is that correct?
Correct. So on the columns that say authorized by Texas Pharmacy Act /rules, if it's in blue, that's an area you could direct us to look into. And we think there's a possibility, I can't say for sure because we hadn't had enough time to really look at it, but we think there's a possibility that we might be able to expand or clarify those sections of our rules to possibly allow a little bit more. But we didn't want to do that until you told us that you would like to see that.
And then also, if I could just mention, so looking at this chart, which is a good chart, obviously, but it also illustrates all the different things that our pharmacists and our technicians are now having to do. And I know that they are under a lot of stress, a lot of strain, and I'm wondering if we should have even just some kind of statement, something. I know NABP has a task force on wellness and stress and burnout for the profession. I'm wondering if we need to have something maybe on our website with maybe resources. There's a CDC page that's really good for healthcare providers on mental health and things like that. Maybe that's something we could include around this area. I don't know if that's something that the board feels like is necessary, but I feel like there's just a lot of stress on our pharmacists right now in the industry.
How would you feel about including some resources like that, a newsletter that's sent out?
I think that's also a good idea.
Yeah, it's not just, we have to look at it that it's, Donna's exactly right, and it's really a healthcare situation. I mean, we see all of our, our physicians, the nurses, everybody's in it. And I thank you on behalf of the entire board. I hear from pharmacists often that when we hear burnout on the TV or in different places and they talk about, the healthcare system, well, they mention, physicians and nurses, but they never say pharmacists. So I think us acknowledging that, there are tools out there, I think that's a great thing for us to be able to do. So if we can get that in the newsletter, I think that would be great.
Is there some kind of statement or something that we could make just
to have on the website. I mean, I know that APHA has made a statement, about what they think, the profession needs and all the different things going on. Is there some kind of statement or something? I mean, I obviously am not in the trenches, right? But I know the people that are in the trenches. I see them. I see the lines of people, the frustration, all of that. And I just want people to understand that we do acknowledge that. And it can be a safety issue if someone is working and they are stressed. So I just feel it's an important thing.
How about if we take that as a takeaway, and maybe that's something Tim and I jointly work on? Kind of like we did with, for Pharmacy Month. And it's probably, a good timing with the new year and everything for us to have something else out there. Any other good discussion? I mean, that we really need to make sure that. But I do think, putting this, I think that's a really good suggestion about bringing this out, so that is a tool that people can see and they understand. Any other thoughts on this, questions? All right. Well, thank you, Ms. Megan. Let's see. I think Megan is actually still has the mic. We're going to go to F11. If you recall back from our last board meeting, we instructed staff to go back and review the non-sterile compounding to really look to see what our current rules were and kind of go backwards and really look to see what recommendations the staff had. So, Megan, if you want to give us a report.
Thank you. At the November board meeting, you directed staff to evaluate the non-sterile compounding rules. We spoke with the compliance team, and they suggested a few areas in the current section 291-131, so not the amended version from the past meeting, but the rules that are currently in effect, that staff believes could be strengthened to allow for increased enforceability. Those suggestions are to add definitions of cleaning and sanitizing, delineate what areas training should cover for all non-sterile compounding personnel, update the requirement to have a designated and adequate area for non-sterile compounding to apply to all pharmacies engaged in non-sterile compounding, and allow garbing requirements to be set by the pharmacy's standard operating procedures. The compliance staff did not suggest creating new classes of pharmacy or a line in the sand. At the November board meeting, comments were also provided regarding potentially modifying the line in the sand from the previously proposed amendments to keep certain types of compounding, such as magic mouthwash and flavoring, from crossing the line in the sand. A line in the sand with those modifications could say, in the preparation and mixing of compounded non-sterile preparations that use bulk API or excipients, or manipulation beyond the FDA labeling of a commercial product that would generate airborne chemical particles, e.g. crushing a tablet or opening a capsule, with the exception of subparagraph D1H of this section. And that subparagraph referenced there relates to flavoring. So some options available to the board at this moment. You could take no action and the current non-sterile compounding rules would stay in place. You could direct staff to bring back suggested amendments based on compliance staff's comments. You could direct staff to bring back suggested amendments based on a modified line in the sand, or you could direct staff to bring back something else.
I would like to go ahead and make the motion to have staff come back next meeting with what they suggested it be amended to with regard to cleaning, sanitizing, and those other 3 bullet points.
So just for clarification, and Megan, sorry, just for clarification, and Megan, you'll keep me honest on this. Do you want them to come back with an actual proposal, or do you want them to come back with a discussion of what they would propose that looks like?
A discussion of what they would propose.
Okay. So thoughts on this? Yes, we have a motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so just for clarification, our motion and our second is that we are instructing staff to go back and to come back with thoughts, language for us to start to look at prior to a proposed rule.
Yes, based on the compliance staff's comments, is that correct?
Yes. All right, so we've got that captured. All right, is there any discussion on that? All right, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we put this back in the staff's very, very capable hands. .12, and I'm going to turn this over to Tim to discuss emergency kits on long-term care facilities. You'll remember that at the last board meeting, we had some discussion on this.
The last board meeting, you as a board sent this back to staff for us to look at, to investigate, to explore. If you will look at your document, the 291.121, and look at 4B III, there's always been an interpretation, or a long time ago it was interpreted, that the DEA regulations would only permit each cabinet to have one type of, let's say, hydrocodone 5325. And if there was a second cabinet, it could not have that same drug. We have had multiple meetings at the staff level, and we have looked at the DEA regulations from a long, long time ago, and it does not say that. We feel like that it is permissible to have the same drug in two different cabinets. You heard a presentation at the last meeting, and I got an email from them this morning, and they had the exact situation happen this weekend where a new patient was admitted at 6 o'clock on Friday night, and they ordered 5325, and they had 5300 in their cabinet, and the patient got their pain meds at 2:30 the next afternoon. To me, that's impeding patient care, which is not our role as a board. So staff would recommend that you as a board consider instructing us to look at the language, or you have an option to do something today if you'd like to do it, because it's very simple. And if you'll look at 4B III, we recommend that you consider removing the middle sentence in that section, where it would say the provider pharmacy shall not duplicate drugs stored in the emergency medication kits, and leave everything else alone. And I would be happy to answer any questions, or Megan can clarify. Or
Just for everybody, to make sure we're on the same page, we're in 291.121 when we're referring to
291.121, exactly.
So Tim, based on the situation that occurred, it would be addressed by changing that sentence. That's really the point.
Yes, sir. If you take that sentence out, then if you've got two E-kits in a facility, they both could have the normal 5325 in them.
Okay.
With our current rules, the way it's been interpreted for years, you would have to change that strength. So you think about that process with a patient coming in, every doctor's going to write 5325. And then they have to go back and get another C2 prescription transmitted to them for a 5300. That's not good patient care, y'all.
Donnie,
Megan, is that what we're wanting to do?
I was going to ask, Donnie, your motion, is that for us to propose it at this time, or do you want us to bring that back with the strikeout for you to look at in May?
I would propose that we do it now.
Okay.
Yeah,
If that's,
kind of within our options.
so it's the sentence starts on B, three I's. The provider pharmacist shall not duplicate drugs stored in an emergency medication kits.
Yes.
All right, so we currently have a motion and a second that staff bring that back as a proposed rule.
No, that we propose at now.
Okay, so we're
He's
actually,
proposing to make that change now.
okay.
And so we would go ahead, if the board votes to do so, we would go ahead and put this in the register as a proposed rule, get any comments during the comment period, and bring it back to you for potential adoption in May.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what you want, right?
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. And with that, I believe we'll ask Ms. Caroline to come forward for consideration of and possible action concerning enforcement reports.
Okay, we're looking at G.1, and the top chart on G.1, this is going to be your closed report, closed complaint report. The current fiscal year 22, so this is the number of closed complaints as of, that were closed during that quarter, ending November 30th of 2021. And then the bottom chart on the page is a comparison of those closed complaints that were closed with disciplinary action to those that were closed without disciplinary action in the quarter. And then page 2 of G.1 is the comparison of the first quarter of fiscal year 22 with the quarterly average for last fiscal year. And then an average, obviously it's going to be the same because we only have one quarter currently for fiscal year 22, but that as we go along in the fiscal year, that average will become an average. And then it compares the quarterly average ongoing between FY 21 and 22. And also provides more detail on how the complaints were closed. All right, and then your open complaints are going to be behind G.2. So the top chart is going to reflect the number of complaints received and closed and an average resolution time for your last 5 fiscal years. And the bottom chart reports on the number of open complaints by age. And as of, at the far right is the column that adds your recent numbers. So this is as of January 10th, 2022, the number of open complaints that are pending with the Board of Pharmacy. Significantly, I'd like to point out the number of complaints between 1 year and the age of complaints between 1 year and 18 months, so 12 to 18 months. We've been successful at getting that number down.
Caroline, I really want to compliment your team again on your drive to continue to close complaints quickly, and I know you're doing it very thoroughly. What is different? What has changed from 2017 to 2021 that, and what do we need to do to sustain that? Because I think that's a very important advancement that we've made within this organization, and I don't want to lose that.
I wonder that too, Lori. I think a big thing has been getting all our complaint files used to be paper-based, and they're now 100% electronic. So from the very start with the intake of the complaint, if they're received as a paper form, they are immediately converted to electronic form. And if they are electronic, we keep them electronic, and all the records and evidence and information that we collect along the way, as soon as it's received, it's placed in that electronic file. So that has made both the assignment and the review just tremendously quicker because it's all at your fingertips in the agency's shared database. So I feel like we're spending a little more time assessing jurisdiction up front. So we spend a little more time on the intake of the complaint to see where which bucket could it be best placed in.
Okay. Well, very well done. Thank you.
Do you monitor if they're warranted complaints, or let's say that was not warranted? They went to wrong network and they're complaining about it.
Exactly. So if there's not something we're going to be able to ultimately do anything with, even they've let us know a licensee has aggrieved them in some way, but if it's not something that what they're telling us was a violation is a violation of our laws and rules, then that's where we spend a lot of time looking at those up front to see is there anything here that we're going to be able to help that complainant with and let them know that up front, rather than investigate it to find out, oh, actually there's not much we can do here.
Any other questions or comments for Caroline and her group?
You're exactly right. As a board, Caroline and her team do an amazing job.
Yeah.
And they look at each case. They're kind of like each one of those cases is Caroline's child. And a lot of those she comes to me with. When we can't do anything about it, we deal with it. And when we can do something about it, she sends it to the right person and it happens. So kudos to her and her team.
Yeah, definitely, that progress has been kept up, and we appreciate it. So, all right, well, thank you, Ms. Caroline. All right, John, would you?
We gotta wait on.
Oh, we have to wait on that, you're correct. So I guess Megan will drop down to H.2.
Okay. I will note that you can see Cooper and Yarlagadda are listed currently in John's H.1 proposals for decision. They were accidentally included in that list. They're actually default orders, so they're going to be part of the charts that I'm about to go over, just so we're all on the same page. So for H.2, Amy sent you the information associated with the items under H in a link. The information has also been put on your laptops, and these are all of the agreed board orders, default orders, and remedial plans that have either been entered by the executive director or are being proposed to you. Under H.2 is a report of all of the orders that have been entered by the executive director. These are ones that you have authorized the executive director to enter. This item does not need a vote and is just for your information. So unless you have questions on these, we will move on to the next ones. Okay.
Go ahead.
So in H.3 and H.4, H.3 are the proposed agreed board orders and default orders, and H.4 are the proposed remedial plans. These include both orders and remedial plans resulting from informal conferences and those proposed by mail per your previous instructions. You'll notice the orders resulting from an informal conference. In that chart, it indicates the board members that were at that informal conference. If you participated in the informal conference, we will automatically recuse you from that vote. And unless you have questions about these, we would need a motion to approve the proposed agreed board orders and default orders and the proposed remedial plans. So that would be both items H.3 and H.4.
All right, do we have a motion?
I move that we accept.
Donna has made the motion that we accept these board orders. Donnie has given us her second. Any questions, comments?